Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening. As per Roxanne's request, Lucian asked Electra out for lunch at a high-end restaurant. When they both arrived, Electra happened to reach at the same time. Roxanne did not doll up much, merely having applied some skincare products. Contrarily, Electra wore exquisite makeup, giving off an elegant and classy feeling. However, Electra could tell at a glance that Roxanne was a natural beauty who was stunningly gorgeous even without makeup. Back when she saw the latter at the hospital, Roxanne appeared haggard. As such, she did not expect such a vast difference after the woman had recovered. Unbidden, a sliver of envy crept into her since there were some flaws on her face that could only be concealed with makeup. Hello, Ms. Lane. We meet again. Roxanne greeted without waiting for Lucian to speak first, confident and amicable. Hello. You're really beautiful, Miss Jarvis. No wonder Lucian couldn't forget you all these years. Electra could not help expressing a touch of jealousy. Lucian was stunned for a moment before he hastily quipped, Indeed, Roxanne is pretty. But I'm not such a superficial person that I'm only concerned about her looks. That remark of his had Roxanne glancing at him with a smirk on her face. Similarly, Electra hurriedly smoothed things over, seconding, but of course. Not only is Ms. Jarvis beautiful, but her capabilities are also astounding. She isn't merely a renowned doctor. On top of that, she's a leading character in high-end medical technology. There are few women like her in this world. At the woman's excessive flattery, Roxanne promptly shook her head. Not at all, Ms. Lane. My achievements aren't that impressive. Conversely, you've sacrificed a lot because of my illness. Your family will likely misunderstand you since you faked a marriage with Lucian under tremendous pressure. Thank you so much. She was sincere in thanking Electra, but its meaning became distorted when it reached the latter's ears. As Electra had a suspicious nature, she instinctively stole a glance at Roxanne, feeling like Roxanne was testing her. Hence, she quickly countered, no, don't mention it. I've already explained things to my family. The marriage certificate was fake and was destroyed long ago. Don't take it to heart, Ms. Jarvis. Let's go into the restaurant first. This isn't a suitable place to talk, Lucian proposed. Following that, the three of them went into the restaurant. After entering the private room, Roxanne immediately slid the menu over to Electra. Lunch today will be my treat as my way of thanking you, Ms. Lane. Don't stand on ceremony with me and just order whatever you like. Lucian and I aren't picky. There was nothing special about those words, yet they grated on Electra's ears. It was as though Roxanne was staking her claim on Lucian. Taking the menu with a smile, she did not decline but ordered a few dishes. After doing so, she saw Lucian and Roxanne sitting exceedingly close in an incredibly intimate manner. For some inexplicable reason, a sense of unease filled her. Aubrey must have lost back then because she underestimated Roxanne. Roxanne is definitely not as simple as she looks. By the way, I wonder if the things I sent over previously suited you, Ms. Jarvis. I didn't know what to buy, so I picked those supplements and brought them over, Electra commented. Smiling, Roxanne thanked her. Thank you, Ms. Lane. Supplements are perfect for someone who's recovering from a major illness like me. That's great. I really admire you, Ms. Jarvis. Back then, you were poisoned severely with a rare substance, yet you could develop the antidote by yourself, and in less than a day at that. It's downright mind-boggling. Electra kept praising Roxanne to the skies. Meanwhile, Roxanne deflected it all, for she did not want her mind addled by the compliments. As Madeline said, I've got to be on my guard against her. With her fawning all over someone repeatedly, the average person would likely lower their guard. Verily, she did not want any other problems to crop up between her and Lucian when her 3 children had finally made up for their regrets. Lucian was so focused on Roxanne that he didn't notice anything unusual. "You must be thirsty after such a long conversation," he said to Roxanne, offering her a glass of water, which she accepted with a smile. Electra couldn't help but feel a little left out as Lucian focused all his attention on Roxanne and didn't even ask if she wanted anything to drink. She called for the server and said, Excuse me, I'm not really liking the coffee. Can I please have a glass of lemon water instead?" The dishes were brought out, including Electra's lemon water. She couldn't help but notice that Lucian was so busy serving Roxanne that he completely ignored her even though she was a guest. It was an awkward moment for her, and she regretted not declining the meal invite. "Why didn't I say no? By letting Roxanne treat me to lunch, it put me at a disadvantage." Trying to break the silence, Electra said, Lucian, Miss Jarvis, why didn't you bring the kids along?" In truth, she knew the kids were at school that day but wanted to start a conversation. They're at school. We're planning to take them out tomorrow since it's the weekend," Roxanne replied, as she spooned some of Lucian's favorite dishes onto his plate. Unable to stand the lovey-dovey actions of the couple before her, Electra continued the conversation. "I would love to meet your 3 kids. I heard they're quite the good-looking bunch. Is that true?" The topic piqued Lucian's interest. Yes, they are. After all, Roxanne and I are their parents. You can't go wrong with genetics." Electra's heart sank as she listened, but she knew she had to put on a brave face. Wow, I really must see for myself. I wonder what kind of gifts I should bring for them." There's no need for that, Ms. Lane," Roxanne replied. They have everything they need at the moment. You must be very busy since you just returned home. Don't waste your time and effort preparing gifts. I'll bring them out another time and introduce you to them." From the way Electra looked at Lucian throughout lunch, Roxanne could tell something was indeed off. It was as though Electra was trying hard to hide how much she admired Lucian. Time seemed to drag on for Electra during the meal, and she announced that she was full after only a few hurried bites. Thank you for the meal, Ms. Jarvis. I'm a bit tied up since I just returned to the country. I need to meet a few old friends later, so what do you say we call it a day?" Electra wanted to leave as soon as possible. Roxanne nodded her head and agreed, and Electra prepared to leave the private room. She thought Lucian would at least see her off, as he was big on etiquette, but much to her dismay, he didn't even spare her a glance as he spooned food onto Roxanne's plate. "I recall that this is your favorite. Try it. It's more authentic here," he said to Roxanne, ignoring Electra's departure. Electra left, feeling utterly uncomfortable at the scene unfolding before her. Meanwhile, Roxanne narrowed her eyes as she watched Electra's retreating figure. Her experience with Aubrey and the near-death incident with Jack had changed Roxanne's state of mind. Back then, she was engulfed in fear and tried to avoid Lucian whenever he made the first move, as she didn't know what he and the Farwell were planning to do with Archie and Benny. Because of that, she restrained her desires and tried to convince herself to let go of Lucian. However, only she knew how deep she had fallen for him. She wasn't about to let anyone ruin her happiness now that everything was back on track and her kids now had both parents by their side. Roxanne thoroughly enjoyed herself as Electra had ordered the restaurant's signature dishes. "It's a shame she's not here to enjoy these delicacies with us." After lunch, Lucian took Roxanne to the mall and bought her clothes and shoes. Excitedly, he picked out several dresses for her to try on, his eyes sparkling with each new outfit. This looks great on you. It feels like this dress was made specifically for you." This one too. It accentuates your curves so well." Yes, this is the one. You look like you're fresh out of college in this dress. So young and pretty. I don't mean to say that you look old, it just makes you look even younger." Roxanne lost track of how many outfits they bought, but in the end, Lucian arranged for the store to deliver everything to their mansion since it was too much to carry. The store owner readily agreed, knowing that it wasn't every day that a customer spent hundreds of thousands in one go. After Lucian left, The salesgirls informed the store owner that he was the CEO of Farwell Group. The owner was upset that they hadn't told him earlier, as he would have offered a 50% discount for Lucian. Lucian received a call from Sonia while he was still shopping, instructing him to visit the Farwell main residence when he had the time, as she needed to discuss some things with him. "You can send me back first, then," Roxanne suggested as she overheard their conversation. Okay. I'll send you back first before going to the Farwell main residence. I'll also pick the kids up after school on the way back if there's nothing else for me to do. You rest at home. Don't even think about sneaking off to work." Lucian nagged her all the way back to the mansion, while Roxanne merely smiled and nodded as she listened. She noticed that his temperament had changed quite a bit after everything they'd been through, as he used to be a man of few words. After dropping Roxanne off, Lucian headed to the Farwell main residence. As soon as Lucian stepped foot into the residence, he noticed that the atmosphere was tense. Sonia looked visibly angry and immediately confronted him upon his arrival. Lucian, don't you think you owe me an explanation? What is going on between you and Electra? Since when were you two married?" Lucian remained expressionless, as he had expected Sonia to ask about it sooner or later. Mom, it was a desperate measure we came up with to deal with Jack. It's fake. Electra must have told you about it, right? Yes, she did. How could you be so reckless as to treat marriage as a joke? This is a serious matter. Sonia was fuming. She was thrilled when she thought Lucian had finally cut ties with Roxanne and found a daughter-in-law who met her standards. Despite the Lanes not having the same level of power and influence as the Pearsons used to, they were still considered a prestigious family. She felt utterly betrayed when she discovered it was all a ruse. What was Electra thinking? Why would she pretend to be married to my son to save a stranger? Is she foolish? Mom, this is not a joke. We did it all to save Roxanne. I'm very grateful to Electra for helping me, and I plan to show my gratitude by doing business with the Lanes. Lucian's tone turned cold when he heard how lightly Sonia regarded Roxanne's life. Sonia's expression stiffened and turned colder. That's not what I meant. I didn't say Roxanne's life is unimportant. I'm just curious if you've considered the consequences of doing this. Even Electra's parents will believe it to be the truth. What will happen to Electra's reputation after you announce it to the public? Shouldn't that be taken into account? Lucian didn't want to get into a conflict with his mother. He pondered briefly before softening his tone and replying, I did consider that at the time. You can ask Electra about this. I did this only after I obtained her consent. Sonia arched her brows. Of course, she would agree. Electra has always treated you well since you were little. She accommodated you by letting you have all the toys you wanted. She's just kind-hearted. Lucian was rendered speechless. He had a feeling Sonia was prepared to make a fuss about this matter. Am I wrong? Sonia became more aggressive. Even if Electra agreed to this, you shouldn't take this matter lightly just like that. Did you at least go to the Lane residence to provide her parents with an explanation? You're right, Mom. I was indeed negligent in handling this matter. I will make a trip to the Lane residence, Lucian said gently, acknowledging his oversight. Sonia heard her son's conciliatory tone, but she was still fuming, so she continued throwing a tantrum. I even spent so much time discussing the wedding ceremony and banquet arrangements with Electra's father, Richard Lane. This is just great. I'm truly embarrassed now. Lucian felt a pang in his heart. It seems like Mom is genuinely anxious to remove Roxanne from the picture and wants me to get married to another woman promptly. Still, he had to yield to his elder, so he answered, Mom, I've indeed acted rashly. I'm sorry, all right? Why don't you pick a time to invite Mr. Lane out? I'll express my gratitude and apologize to them in person. Sonia did not expect Lucian to be so soft-spoken and obliging suddenly. In the past, they would always confront each other head-on, but he was now resorting to a milder approach. She was stumped and didn't know how to vent her dissatisfaction afterward. I can't believe how tenaciously Roxanne clings to life. I will do as you suggest, then. But Lucian, are you really not planning to be with Electra? She's gentle, kind, and can provide you with significant assistance since she studied abroad. Lucian instantly grimaced after listening to Sonia trying to play matchmaker for him again, scaring Sonia out of her wits with the scowl on his face. Mom, don't say that anymore in the future. That was the limit of his tolerance. An awkward expression spread across Sonia's countenance. After a pause, she uttered, Roxanne should have recovered by now, right? I'm not saying that she's not a suitable partner for you. She's undoubtedly capable, and her medical skills are extraordinary. However, she did give birth to those 2 kids with another man. That will greatly tarnish the Farwell family's good name. Lucian's pupils constricted as he stared at his mother. I almost forgot to tell you this. The 2 kids, Archie and Benny, are actually mine and Roxanne's. They were born together with Essie. The 3 of them are triplets. Sonia fell silent as she froze in shock. She took in Lucian's serious mien and ascertained he wasn't kidding with her or telling a lie. Instead, his gaze was unwavering and shone with earnestness. What did you say? How could those 2 children be yours? No, that's impossible. There was no way Sonia would believe that. Mom, that's the truth. Whether you believe it or not, Archie and Benny are my children. They were born 6 years ago together with Essie. In a strange twist of events, Roxanne thought Essie had died prematurely. I suppose the person who was assigned to bring Essie back was Grandpa's subordinate. He certainly didn't expect Roxanne to have given birth to 3 children and taken the 2 boys away with her. The truth could sometimes be so absurd. Nevertheless, Colby's revelation, Roxanne's admission, and the instinctual affection between him, Archie, and Benny led Lucian to believe that was the truth. However, Sonia would never believe that. She suddenly raised her voice and said sternly, Lucian, you can't blindly put your faith in everything Roxanne tells you. What's the matter? Is this a new version of the story she made up? It isn't enough that she made those 2 boys your godchildren just a while ago. Now she's tricking you into believing they are your biological sons? That woman is truly capable of spinning tales. Even the way Sonia looked at Lucian had changed as she spoke. She wondered if Roxanne had bewitched Lucian with some medication. Roxanne has such impressive medical skills, so it shouldn't be challenging for her to concoct a drug that could manipulate people's minds, causing them to lose their sanity. No, that's not it. Mom, I know you find it difficult to believe what I said, but that's really the truth. Lucian didn't expect he could clarify everything to his mother in one go. Lucian, you need to think this through. Roxanne is such a terrifyingly scheming woman. Why can't she be satisfied with just making those boys your godchildren? Is she planning to deceive you into thinking they are your biological kids so they can claim the Farwell family's right of inheritance? Sonia wasn't fond of Roxanne in the first place. Hence, Lucian's words only further raised her suspicion, and she assumed the whole thing was Roxanne's plot all along. As she must be seeking revenge on our family for abandoning her 6 years ago. I can't believe a vengeful woman can be so frightening. Muttering to herself absent-mindedly, Sonia was filled with the desperate urge to instill her train of thought into Lucian. Meanwhile, Lucian's expression turned darker. Poker-faced, he narrowed his eyes and gritted his teeth. After a few seconds, he unclenched his jaw. Mom, just shut up. Do you take your son as a fool? Also, don't judge Roxanne in front of me from now on. I have a good grasp of her character, he uttered firmly. After saying that, Lucian lost his patience and no longer wanted to interact with Sonia further. However, she refused to let that matter rest. Noticing her son was about to leave, she hurriedly grabbed him. Sorrow and anguish filled her voice as she spoke. Lucian, you mustn't listen to everything Roxanne says. Disregarding her, he glanced at Sonia impassively, shook off her hand, and strode past her. The next instant, Sonia lost her temper. "You're indeed formidable, Roxanne Jarvis. I underestimated you. She's such a manipulative woman. No, I cannot allow this. How can someone like her become a part of the Farwell family?" Rage burned within her chest, causing her to feel discomfort all over as she mumbled, what should I do? How can I drive Roxanne away as soon as possible? There's no way those two bastards are descendants of the Farwell family. No matter how you look at them, they don't have the befitting temperament. Why would Lucian believe they are his kids? Sonia was so furious that she thought she would have a heart attack. She quickly walked toward the table, picked up a glass of water, and took a sip. Her worried demeanor startled Electra, who had dropped by unannounced. Carrying numerous bags of all sizes, Electra entered the house and greeted, Mrs. Farwell. Electra placed her bags on the ground and hurried toward Sonia. Grabbing Sonia's hands, she asked in concern, Mrs. Farwell, why do you look so pale? Are you feeling unwell? Sonia was so angry her palms were sweaty, though she felt better when Electra held her hands. Since Electra is from a prestigious family, she is definitely more sensible than Roxanne. Sonia immediately put on a smile and calmed herself. Yeah, I'm fine. Why did you bring so many gifts here? Are you sure you're okay? Come and sit down first. Drink some water. Do you feel unwell? Do you need me to send you to the hospital? Electra showered Sonia with concern as she supported the latter to sit down. Sonia shook her head. I'm really fine. By the way, you don't have to bring gifts when you come to see me. It's like this. I went to visit Ms. Jarvis in the morning. Since she's just recovered recently, I bought some supplements for her. Of course, I thought about giving you an even more expensive and effective supplement set. Although Electra seemed like a calm and gentle woman, she was actually a calculating person. If she mentioned that she bought supplements for Roxanne and only bought some for Sonia while she was at it, Sonia would not be pleased. However, the way she phrased it would easily ease any ruffled feathers. Sonia immediately understood her intentions and gave a small smile. However, her expression quickly soured. What kind of supplements did you bring her? You guys don't even know each other. Why did you have to buy them for her? If you didn't have a fake marriage with Lucian, she wouldn't have gotten the antidote and might not even be alive now. Electra noticed the change in her expression and kept her emotions in check. It's fine. It was only a fake marriage certificate. It wasn't a big sacrifice. It's not like I did anything special, so I can't take credit for it. It was evident to Electra that Sonia and Roxanne didn't get along. That's probably why Aubrey went overboard. It might be because Sonia was supporting her actions. However, I won't be as foolish as Aubrey. Of course, it's a big deal. Your reputation is at stake here. Your father almost announced the marriage publicly. If that had happened, it would have hurt you badly. Why should you be sacrificing yourself to save her? As Sonia fumed, Electra listened to her quietly without interrupting much. She even took the initiative to brew a cup of coffee for Sonia. Sonia felt better after this and asked Electra seriously, tell me honestly, how do you feel about Lucian? Electra was stunned by the question. However, she quickly put on a surprised expression. Well, Mrs. Farwell. Lucian and Miss Jarvis have such a great relationship. Moreover, they already have 3 children together. How could you bring this up? 3 children? Besides Essie, how could those 2 be considered part of the Farwell family? Sonia replied coldly. Her reaction was what Electra had expected. She suddenly pretended to appear sorrowful. I do have feelings for Lucian. After all, we grew up together. However, I knew I had lost my opportunity when I went to Epia to further my studies. Besides, Miss Pearson was Lucian's fiancée at that time. Sonia shook her head and grabbed Electra's hands. She tried to persuade Electra. What do you mean by missing your opportunity? Lucian hasn't remarried Roxanne yet, so they aren't officially together. You still have a chance. B, but they have 3 children already. I probably only have these feelings because Lucian is my childhood friend. I don't want to ruin his happiness, so I hope you won't bring this up to me again. Electra understood Sonia's intentions, but she had to put on a show of outright rejecting the latter. I'll say it again. Those 2 boys aren't part of the Farwell family. Roxanne is really good at lying. At first, she convinced Lucian to acknowledge them as his godsons, but now they are suddenly Lucian's biological sons. She's really shameless. How could she even pretend to be someone she's not? Sonia lost her temper again upon thinking about this. Electra appeared shocked. That can't be true. Miss Jarvis doesn't seem to be that kind of person. Is there some misunderstanding here? There's no misunderstanding here. How could you think Roxanne is an innocent woman? You have misjudged her. Roxanne is an extremely cunning and ruthless person, Sonia emphasized as she frowned. She was worried that Electra was too naive and had been deceived by Roxanne's facade. Initially, Electra saw Lucian and Roxanne being so affectionate with each other and thought there was no hope for her to get together with Lucian anymore. However, upon seeing Sonia's rejection and hatred for Roxanne, she felt a glimmer of hope. Back then, she had already expressed her feelings for Lucian. However, he had been too busy taking over the family business that he had no time for romance. Then, she regained hope again after Lucian and Roxanne got a divorce. However, Aubrey was much more proactive in pursuing Lucian then, so she had no choice but to give up again. After meeting men and dating for a while, she realized that no one could compare to Lucian. She suddenly felt restless after suppressing her feelings for so long. Sonia noticed Electra was in a daze and assumed that the latter didn't believe her words, so she quickly added, I know your feelings toward Lucian. When Lucian told me he was going to marry you, I could tell that you were delighted. Electra smiled bitterly in response because Sonia had hit the bullseye on her thoughts. That's right. I was really surprised then, as I thought my time had finally come. However, I didn't expect that we would only be getting a fake marriage certificate. It was ridiculous. Electra tried to suppress her emotions, not wanting to reveal them to Sonia. This instinctual response was something she had developed over the years. If only you were my daughter-in-law. How great would that be? Anyway, if you are interested, I will fully support you. Sonia was also a cunning woman. Her frankness had led Electra to expose her true feelings this day. As long as someone ran interference and disturbed Roxanne, she was happy. Mrs. Farwell, thank you. However, when it comes to matters of the heart, it cannot be forced. I'm doing well and hope to utilize what I learned overseas. Miss Jarvis is also an outstanding woman. How could I compete with her? Electra replied as she finally managed to push down her raging emotions. At that moment, Elias had been standing outside the main hall for quite some time. Sonia's voice was loud, so he had been able to hear most of the conversation. He coughed twice before walking into the main hall briskly. Electra, you're here. Mr. Farwell, nice to see you. I came over to pass Mrs. Farwell some supplements. I also bought some gifts for you when I was overseas, but the delivery is really slow, so it's not here yet. Everything Electra said and did was diplomatic. Elias nodded before praising her. That's so thoughtful of you. Why don't you sit for a while longer? We can have dinner together. It's okay, Mr. Farwell. I still have some things to attend to, so I'll take my leave now. You guys should come and visit us when you have the time. My parents have been saying it has been a long time since you guys have talked to one another. Since she had gathered all the information she needed, there was no need for her to linger any longer. She quickly left after exchanging some pleasantries. As soon as she left, Elias' expression turned dark. What's wrong with you? Can you stop mentioning our family matters to outsiders? His tone was stern, causing Sonia's expression to change drastically. What? I didn't say anything wrong. Besides, Electra is much closer to me than Roxanne, so she isn't an outsider. Moreover, if she's an outsider, why would she help Lucian to save Roxanne? Taking in Sonia's enraged expression, Elias furrowed his brows. Why can't you respect Lucian's choice? He's no longer a child, so can you stop being so controlling and obsessive? Let him handle his relationships, marriage, and family matters himself. Can't you just enjoy your own life? Elias' mentality in life was to go with the flow. After spending decades in the business world, he learned that no one would listen to others' advice, not even those closest to them. Therefore, even though he knew Lucian would make some mistakes when the latter was first taking over Farwell Group, he allowed his son to make his own mistakes. No one could substitute the experience of learning from one's own mistakes. However, Sonia couldn't comprehend this. She stood up and almost placed her arms on her waist. Why? I'm doing this for Lucian. I'm pretty sure Roxanne thought Essie wasn't going to survive and threw her away. Later, she had 2 other children with another man and decided to pretend they were part of the Farwell family. Do you know about this? Elias was stunned since he was unaware of this. He queried quickly, what do you mean by that? Lucian said that Archie and Benny are his biological children. He said Archie, Benny, and Essie are triplets. Can you believe that? Sonia was confident that her judgment was correct. Elias pondered for a few seconds before responding. It sounds surprising, but it should be easy to prove if it's true. If we verify the DNA of the 2 children, we will find out the truth. Do you think our son would not know this? Elias could only hope that Sonia was rational. Otherwise, he was afraid Sonia and Lucian would only grow more and more distant from each other. Yes, but Lucian didn't give me any evidence and wants me to acknowledge those 2 kids as my grandsons. How can I accept this? Do you think Roxanne poisoned Lucian to mess with his mind? I think you have to bring Lucian for a medical checkup someday. The more she spoke, the more suspicious she became. Elias sighed and tried to explain gently. Aubrey already caused a lot of harm to Essie. This time, we have to stay calm. As for verifying the DNA, I'll discuss this with Lucian later. You should really stop being so obsessive. However, Sonia wasn't listening to him anymore. She felt that everyone was on Roxanne's side instead of hers. She retorted, don't mention Aubrey. Before Roxanne appeared, Aubrey was fine. Who knows what Roxanne did to agitate Aubrey to cause the latter to do those irrational things. Therefore, how could this be Aubrey's fault fully? Seeing that he wasn't able to convince her, Elias decided to give up. It was impossible to change Sonia's prejudice against Roxanne in a short period. He could only do it slowly. Okay. Let's not talk about this. We haven't seen Essie in a long time. Since school is about to end, let's go over and see her. He deliberately changed the topic, causing Sonia to calm down. She nodded in agreement. When Elias and Sonia reached the kindergarten, school had not ended yet. They went to find Jeffrey so that they could see Estella. Jeffrey said politely, "You please wait here for a while. I'll go to the classroom and bring Essie here right away." Soon, Estella came skipping into Jeffrey's office as she thought she was getting rewarded. Upon seeing her grandparents, she happily charged into Elias' embrace. Ha ha ha. Essie, did you miss me? Elias carried Estella into his arms and smiled dotingly. Of course. I missed you, Grandpa. Elias' stubble pricked Estella, causing her to feel a little pain. Grandpa, your beard is prickly. Elias laughed heartily and ignored Estella's reluctance, pecking her on her cheek. I missed you too. It's been so long since we have seen each other. Sonia felt slightly uncomfortable watching their interaction. She scolded, don't you miss me too, Essie? Did that woman teach Essie not to be close to me? Suspicion appeared on Sonia's face, causing Elias to glare at her. He reminded her softly, what are you talking about? I missed you too, Grandma. I love your pastries. It's been a long time since I ate them. I really want to eat them. After Elias placed Estella on the ground, she went up to Sonia and opened her arms for a hug. Sonia felt better upon hearing Estella's words and carried the latter into her arms with a smile. Jeffrey tactfully decided to leave his office so that Estella's grandparents could spend some time with their granddaughter. Just as he was about to leave, Elias stopped him and requested, Mr. Bauer, could you bring Essie's 2 brothers here too? Jeffrey was stunned as he knew what had happened previously. He also knew Sonia's prejudice against the 2 kids. Sonia was surprised too and glanced at her husband. Frowning, she asked, Hey, what are you doing? Elias ignored Sonia's reluctance and nodded at Jeffrey. Bring them over here. Okay. I'll bring Archie and Benny over here. Please wait a moment. Nothing will go wrong, right? They are just meeting one another. Elias, why do you have to see those 2 kids? Do you really want to acknowledge them as part of the Farwell family? Let me tell you, before anything is confirmed, I'll never acknowledge them. Sonia's tone was cold and left no room for negotiation. Estella seemed to understand what she was saying and blinked. She asked, Grandma, do you not like my 2 brothers? Let me tell you good news. They are my biological brothers. Mommy and Daddy are their birth parents. Sonia froze but tamped down on her emotions to not show them in front of Estella. Lucian has already acknowledged them, so I will too. Can you please control yourself in front of Essie? Look, Essie likes them so much. The children's feelings toward one another are the most important. Elias lectured Sonia again, but she wasn't listening to him. Estella's eyes were full of curiosity. She didn't really understand why her grandparents were slightly angry. However, she was obedient and didn't say anything. Elias turned to smile at Estella. Being with the 2 boys has been really beneficial. Essie is getting more fluent when she speaks. You can't even tell that she has any illness. Elias' words were meant for Sonia, as he wanted her to look at reality and stop focusing on her prejudices. Sonia's lips moved to say something, but she was interrupted when Jeffrey brought Archie and Benny over. The boys were impassive at the appearance of Elias and Sonia. On the other hand, Estella beamed at them. Archie, Benny, hurry up and greet Grandpa and Grandma. Estella naively urged her brothers to acknowledge her grandparents, thinking they would then become a family. However, the boys merely smiled at Estella's urging and shot curious looks at Elias, wanting to see his reaction. With an innocently charming smile, Elias bent down and patted the boys' heads. What's wrong? Why aren't you calling me Grandpa? Go on, my precious grandsons. While the boys were baffled by his kind welcome, Elias wrapped his arms around them and pulled them in for a hug. Archie and Benny exchanged a glance. A mixture of shock, confusion, and delight crossed their eyes. Archie shot a knowing glance at Benny, and they called out, Grandpa. Haha. That's more like it. You boys are truly my precious grandsons. I'm sure I committed a lot of mistakes in the past, and I hope you can forgive me. Elias completely ignored the scowl on Sonia's face. Grandpa, you're squeezing us a bit too tightly. Benny finally got to experience the treatment Estella usually got. However, the embrace was just too suffocating for his comfort. With a chuckle, Elias released them. Archie also experienced what it felt like to have stubble stabbing at his face. The fascinating experience courted his genuine laughter. Come, let me see who is who. You're the older brother, Archie, right? Then, you must be the younger one, Benny. Did I get it right? After Elias released the boys, he studied their faces intently. Even though their eyes and brows look like Roxanne's, it's just because they're still young and have inherited her dominant features. I'm sure they'll look more similar to Lucian once they're in their teens. After all, they most definitely inherited the Farwell family's cool and calm temperament. Archie and Benny nodded simultaneously. Their expression and gestures were shockingly unanimous. It piqued Elias' interest. It seems I'll have to do more research on the synchronization between a pair of twins. Throughout the entire exchange, the boys didn't spare Sonia a glance. They could sense Sonia's intense dislike of them. Her expression was dark as usual, and her eyes were so cold that her aversion was evident. Although Elias caught her displeasure, he wasn't in a rush to fix the situation. He didn't want to force the children to make twisted decisions. Archie, Benny, what about Grandma? Come on, call her. Estella urgently urged. Archie and Benny swung their gazes to Sonia but didn't speak. Irritation surged within Sonia at their gazes. In the next instant, she spat biting words through her clenched jaw. Save it. I don't plan on acknowledging both of you. This is all your mother's scam. The boys' expressions hardened as anger coursed through them. Estella was stunned by the turn of events. A glint of sadness flitted across her eyes. Grandma, please don't talk about mommy like that. Please. Nonsense. My mommy isn't someone like that. We're daddy's kids, Benny retorted. The slightly mature twin, Archie, turned his gaze to his grandfather, curious about his reaction. Simmering with anger, Elias nearly lost his temper and yelled at his wife, but he held it in. Listen to what you're saying. Can't you be more discreet in front of the kids? Sonia wanted to protest but figured she would look foolish to argue with a child, so she kept silent. She stepped toward Estella and picked her up into her arms. Let's head outside. I heard you took dance lessons. Will you show me? Estella instinctively struggled against Sonia's hold but gave up in the end. She could sense her grandmother's anger had ebbed. Maybe I can talk Grandma into accepting Archie and Benny. Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.